yesterday there was an environmental disaster that literally no one could have predicted. No one did predict it, actually, and it has to do with the Keystone Pipeline. It actually had a spill. Like, the oil that's supposed to travel inside of it got out somehow, which seems impossible. I know, it's made of metal. But it actually happened. The pipeline leaked Thursday morning, spilling about 5,000 barrels of oil, or 210,000 gallons of oil, southeast of the small town of Amherst in northeast South Dakota. It's like a logic puzzle to figure out where in South Dakota that is. But anyway, the pipeline has also had other smaller spills, by the way. 400 barrels each in 2011 and 2016, all in that same area, actually. In response to the reports coming out that spill had actually happened, TransCanada said it shut down the flow of oil in the pipeline at 6 a.m., quote, after a drop in pressure was detected in its operating system resulting from an oil leak that is under investigation. They give the rough idea, basically, of where it had happened there. And I know, it's like, what do you say at a time like this? The oil got out in the ground.
Yeah,
It seemed like such a sure thing.
well, it was a sure thing. It leaked.
It did leak, and it leaks all the time. And so they're talking about this leak, and there were the two similar size leaks. But we did a story like 6 months ago. I think it was in Oklahoma. I'm not 100% sure there. Maybe you can find the video of the hundreds and hundreds of not reported leaks that have happened throughout.
Missouri? I think it was Missouri or Arkansas.
It might have been somewhere around there. But it's just a routine thing now. It's not necessarily always 210,000 gallons. But, you know, jokes aside, like we've been saying the whole time, leak after leak after leak, we come back and say, hey, maybe this is inherently a dangerous way to fuel an economy. There's not a lot of damage done routinely from solar or wind leaks, okay? Maybe your air gets messed up a bit, but that's about it.
Well, easy, partner.
Disaster event.
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
The other thing here, and I have no expertise to lend to this, except that the number of times that a company has reported a leak and then that leak has been an accurate depiction of the leak, zero.
Right. Yes.
I mean, so when they say, I hope it's true, but when they say generally 210,000 gallons, it turns out it's 2,210,000.
Yeah, God only knows.
Yeah, I mean, the general operating procedure in environmental disasters like this, energy company disasters. I mean, look, we all saw the China Syndrome.
Of course, well, John didn't.
Right. It's a film. No, you downplay it. And so I hope that when we hear the truth about the leak, that it is no greater than that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
But, they explain it away, too. They say, well, this was caused by something that was installed improperly. Well, okay, right, that's what can happen if you have that. And then they say, like, based on what we know, and you'll probably get to this, John, but based on what we know, it hasn't affected the water table or the base of the water, right? Based on what we know. But it could have, but here's when it wouldn't if it weren't there in the first place.
Yeah, look, if there was evidence that it happened in the first 24 hours that it affected the water, fine. But I'm not simply going to trust that because you haven't detected it in the first hour, we're good. And I know that the tribal council in the area has put out, they're talking about working with the federal authorities to try to contain this because obviously they feel responsible for that area, although they are not responsible for that pipe. That's TransCanada that does that. But there's a huge water reservoir there, like in that area. Not a reservoir technically, but there's the body of water that could potentially be contaminated. And I'm glad that you brought up that, it was just because of a ring that was wrong, or there was a bad seam. But, like, when we said that this was going to happen, what did you think we thought was going to happen? That the pipe was evil and wanted to spill?
Yeah, but they count on
some sort of mechanical failure.
Part of selling this is knowing that we expect there to be a leak, so that then when there is a leak, they can blame it on something, or say, look, there are a few leaks here and there. That's part of getting this thing working. But when it's a catastrophe, then you can't really use that argument.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so critical to undersell the catastrophic part of this, to make it seem like, hey, this is a problem, we're fixing it, but this is routine. This is what happens when you have a pipeline. No one after the Challenger for us would say, it was just a little problem with the O-ring. Right? All you need to do is tighten the O-rings and then it's fine. Yeah. Except 7 astronauts are dead. You can't make that.
Exactly. Some tiles too. Yeah, I think that was actually what the I'm not expert. But it was a tile.
Right, because the O-ring was not sufficient, I think
we're getting into John territory in this conversation.
Anyway, let's jump back into this because obviously this spill is in its own right a terrible thing, although inevitable, and we will see others. At some point, we'll all be back here, maybe all three. We'll be sitting here and we'll be talking about the next 300,000 gallon leak or the next 2 million gallon leak. Or maybe we'll be talking about the endangered species that were killed in this particular leak. For now, though, we have this one. And it comes at a particularly interesting time, actually, when it comes to these pipelines and TransCanada. So if you bring up this map here, you're going to see the darker line there, the black line, that is the Keystone pipeline. And if you see as it crosses through South Dakota, roughly about halfway down through South Dakota is where it's spilled. But you also see those other colored lines there, and that's where we get into Keystone XL, the expansion pipeline that was rejected by President Obama. And what's interesting about that is, although after his election, President Trump issued an executive order to clear obstacles so that could be made, it's not just up to him. Actually, TransCanada still needed a permit from an independent 5-person Nebraska Public Service Commission at some point in the future. Actually, it turns out it's just in the next couple of days. They're going to be ruling on this in just a few days to see whether Keystone XL should actually go forward.
Look, I do not like people who speculate without knowing, and I know nothing about this. But man, given the timing, right? It just reminded me when I read this the first time. That given the timing, the incentive to lie and to undersell the leak is overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right
I thought you were going to predict like sabotage.
But I don't think you can undersell this leak. I mean, the mere fact that there was a leak that spilled 210,000 gallons of oil, I think should be enough for a commission that, by the way, was already, they weren't just behind this Keystone thing entirely. You pointed out that President Obama, blocked it, and
but he didn't really mean it.
Right. And that's why Trump, of course, didn't. But also Secretary Clinton, when she was running for president, said finally, even though a lot of people didn't buy it at first, that she was not in favor of the pipeline. And so, I mean, when pressed, she didn't come out against it. What's that?
That's it.
They're the same, right? Yeah, of course they are. They're exactly the same. Never mind.
Okay, let's get back to the pipeline. So, you're right.
Sorry.
We got a tragedy here, people. Okay.
Support independent media. Come join us at the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.
So they're considering the possibility of finally approving that the XL expansion to this pipeline, which is a problem not just because it creates more pipeline that can have fault points like this that could lead to more spills like this, but it means that overall more oil will actually be pulled out of the ground and transported and burned. And that's really one of the problems here is that the particular type of fuel that we're talking about that these pipelines are transporting is not just the normal bad for the environment fuel. It's particularly polluting and bad for you type of oil. Maybe we should leave some of it in the ground. That would be a good idea. Now, the question is, after this, will there be more pressure on the Public Service Commission to shut this down? I don't know. I assume that at some point, considering that Donald Trump, I looked back and he has tweeted over the past 6 years or so about the Keystone XL pipeline literally dozens and dozens of times. He returns. This is long before he was running for president. He was pushing for this thing. And we can go back through just a couple of his tweets that are very particular to what happened yesterday. He said in August of 2015, if I am elected president, I will immediately approve the Keystone XL pipeline. No impact on environment. And lots of jobs for U.S. If I remember correctly, the estimate of the number of permanent jobs that would be produced by the Keystone XL pipeline was between 40 and 45. At the time, it was described as a Denny's worth of jobs, which is great. I love Denny's, and I love 36 jobs. But I don't know that that's necessarily merits a presidential tweet.
And where he says no impact on the environment is great, too. Because based on what they know, John, it hasn't touched the wall.
Hasn't touched it. And he also said this, so sad that Obama rejected Keystone Pipeline. Thousands of jobs, good for the environment, no downside. And so, look, this comes after leaks in the Keystone Pipeline. This was not like, hey, maybe everything will be rosy. They already knew that this system wasn't being properly maintained. And so, should we have any faith that he will learn from this particular leak and perhaps put some pressure on the Public Service Commission to shut it down? I sincerely doubt that at this point.
I don't think we need to worry because Jeff Sessions is going to investigate these leaks.
Okay.
By the way, the Kim McIntosh, environmental scientist at the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources, says, in describing it, says, as described, it's not a tiny leak by any means. And The last spill in the pipeline, about 400 barrels of oil in Hutchinson County in April 2016, took about 10 months to clean up.
And they've had a couple of those, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of those around 400 barrels.
She said this will take much longer than 10 months to clean up. 20 months. She can't predict. I can't predict whether it will take 20 months or 12 months. So even as described, a major spill.
Yeah, and like you said, there's every possibility that in a few days or in a week or 6 months, we'll find out that it was far worse. I mean,
well, the president's right in one sense because the jobs that these spills create in cleaning them up,
that's true.
Unbelievable,
that's
right? I mean, this is a real job boon to have this oil spill out all over the place because you need people to come in and clean it up.
Yeah, look, I have to say we've been reporting on these particular pipelines for what feels like years at this point, and the massive opposition to them I found to be inspirational for a long time. The fact that Obama was pushed to not allow the expansion, that there's been a lot of debate inside of Canada about it, that the economy is changing in ways that it became, at least temporarily, not profitable to do this sort of extraction. But they were rushing now. They see the day when people realize, and it becomes more economically feasible. It's already economically feasible to do solar and wind. But they see that day rapidly coming where there will be no room left in the market for them. And it's clear that they want to extract every drop of money, not oil, money that they can in the meantime. And the problem is that when you're just rushing to do it, not only are you more likely to have spills like this, but the carbon still stays in the atmosphere. It's not like, well, later we get solar and so we'll be cool in the end. It's terrible that they have such a strong champion in the White House right now during a critical period immediately preceding renewables really taking over.
By the way, there's a great tweet you didn't read, but you pulled it up. It was from Trump from 2012. March of 2012. Pathetic. Barack Obama did not want to veto Keystone himself, so he lobbied the Democrats in the Senate to defeat it. How's that pathetic? I mean, it just seems like governing.
Right.
Yeah. No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it by executive order. I'm going to sort of
see if we can get a consensus here.
Get a consensus and do it.
Well, at least he's not having it both ways. He's not attacking him for his executive orders.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so unfortunate story there, but important that you know what's going on.
If you like this clip of the Young Turks, there's a whole live 2-hour show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day, and you can download it or stream it and watch it without ads if you become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.
One of the claims that Republicans are making is that we need to drastically cut the corporate tax because that will lead to an explosion of growth for reasons you can read about in Harry Potter. The Wall Street Journal, though, recently held a meeting of CEOs with Trump's chief economic advisor, Gary Cohn. And let's find out if the CEOs believe that that's likely to happen. Let's take a look at this.
If the tax reform bill goes through, do you plan to increase investment, your company's investment, capital investment? Just a show of hands, the tax reform goes through? Okay.
Why aren't the other hands up?
Why aren't the other hands up?
John, I've got a question for Gary quickly.
Why are the other hands up?
Because these are smart people.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of shocked that in that particular forum, the video cameras are on. Why they wouldn't lie? I'm not. Yeah, like there were a few hands.
Because look, I mean, everybody who runs a corporation is not an ogre, right? They don't want to lie.
Yeah.
Right. They don't want to get caught lying. They're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, and we'll see. But I got to pay off my shareholders, and I got to.
Yeah.
No, but it's illustrative of the fact that the Senate and these Republican senators are totally disconnected from the reality of what's going to happen.
Of course, right? Because as I'm saying, they're not going to lie because they know they won't. Right?
Yeah.
They don't think it's the.
And that doesn't mean that they won't benefit. Of course, they will get that money. They just don't necessarily intend on putting it back into the actual company and doing all that
or
sort of
wages or higher
wages as well. Like I would have loved to have seen that question.
Yeah,
that
would
raise wages if we shower you with all this money.
No, they won't because they haven't yet, and they have all this money.
Of course. They've been doing very well. Trump keeps talking about the stock market, but are wages going up? No. Why? The corporations are doing so well. Weird how that works out. And so Steve Mnuchin, Mnuchin. I know I pronounce it differently every time I say it. Okay, I'm sorry. So pictured back here auditioning for the next Batman movie. He was asked about this, why it is that they won't pledge to do the sorts of things the tax bill debate is sort of founded on, and here is his response.
If the tax reform bill goes through, do you plan to increase investment, your company's investment, capital investment? Just a show of hands, the tax reform goes through. Okay.
Why aren't the other hands up?
Why aren't they up, Mr. Secretary? Well, must have been a tired crowd there. I've literally met with hundreds and hundreds of business executives, big business, small business. Everybody's very excited about this. And I can tell you, all the international companies I've spoken with think a 20% corporate tax on a territorial system is going to bring back a lot of jobs and trillions of dollars here into the economy. We have lots of people who are lined up in support of this, the Business Roundtable, financial services. There's a lot of excitement about this plan.
When his batteries run out.
Exactly. There's something up with him. So that must have been a tired crowd.
Right.
That's one way to spin it, I guess. But the thing is,
very
again,
funny, this secretary.
he's the best.
Jeffrey Wright's gang just needs to take him back into the lab and fix the upper lip.
It's a Westworld. Yeah, Westworld thing. Nice.
Yeah.
I had to identify the actor in my mind. So again, like I think having that group of CEOs come together is interesting. We can gather some data from that, but we also, like we've said in the show already, we know how this goes. We know what they do with the money already. So I looked up. SP Global said back in May of 2017 that the 2,000 S&P globally rated businesses were currently sitting on $1.9 trillion that they just have. Now, we've talked before. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but why is it that doesn't suddenly improve the economy? Well, you can take the most basic economics course in the world and read about supply and demand, and you'll understand that simply giving them more money does not produce a demand for their products. It certainly doesn't produce the financial ability to buy more of those products. You could do that if you wanted to, but that's not their strategy. They simply think, oh, you give the businesses a bunch of money, then there's a phase 2 that I don't really understand, then phase 3, everything's better all of a sudden. It doesn't make any sense. I'm an idiot. I've never had more than $7,000 to my name, but I agree with the CEOs there. It's not going to happen.
Maybe you or maybe people. I don't have any faith that they even think it'll work. I mean, I don't think that they're evil. I certainly don't think.
I'm trying to appeal to the people who trust them. Unfortunately,
They don't. It's a lie. We're being lied to. This isn't what they want. What they want is to pay less in corporate tax. They think it's outrageous that they pay this high in corporate tax, and it should be less, and that it strangles the ability of CEOs and business leaders to make as much money for their company as they want. The money that will then, as we now know, since whenever we started paying off the shareholders, the only thing that mattered, that's what they're supposed to do. And that the country's fine, right? And the country's fine, and things will work out. But, by the way, government's too involved. They regulate too much. They tell us what to do too much, and they waste a lot of money. So ultimately, if the government makes a little less money out of this, because they'll get less corporate tax, and as this tax plan passes, they'll get less tax from the people. They'll raise less from the income tax. Then we'll just have to cut stuff, which is what we should have done in the first place, which is what they want.
Which is what,
But they don't say that. I mean, sometimes at least this is those moments when people like Rand Paul in bizarre ways, because he's more likely to go, we should have less money. We should pay for less of these things. And the people, we shouldn't put we shouldn't break the backs of Americans to fund all these things we do. We should do less.
Yeah. And these aren't also people who necessarily, unlike other Republican presidents, supported this president. I mean, these business leaders don't necessarily trust Donald Trump either, and that's a big part of what goes into the fact that he put these business leaders in big positions, the Wilbur Rosses and Steve Mnuchin, so that they would be more comfortable, because he was not terribly popular with that crowd,
of course,
during the election.
Certainly, tax cuts have been and will always be.
Well, I know, but they were confident that they would have gotten them regardless of who won.
Exactly. Yes.
And they didn't like him. But that said, what Ben said is true: is that that these are smart people too, who they want something, and they're not just going to say something if it isn't true. And I mean, they will, but they're en masse. They're not going to like that.
Yeah. It really is amazing, though, that if they get this, I don't know what exactly the final bill will look like, because the Senate and the House bill look different. They have to reconcile that and all that. But how many different benefits they get? They get to give all that money to the corporations and all that. Some of that will come back to them in donations, obviously. There will be a lot of really happy, wealthy people who will help them out. They starve the federal treasury so that eventually they can justify cuts of any number of progressive policies to help to balance the books in the end. They throw ridiculous things in like additional taxes on university endowments because screw universities. They have a personhood amendment in one version of the bill that's going around right now. Has nothing to do with anything, but why not throw it in? This tax bill has suddenly just become everything that they want.
And by the way, and 13 million people off healthcare.
Exactly, as well. We would just throw them off their healthcare. They couldn't get it the first time around.
And
They
they're
get it
not
the second
angry
time.
about that coming in late. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not talking about that.
Whereas, wait a second, this healthcare thing.
Yeah, boy, we beat this 6 times. So,
Right, yeah.
and here at the end, you try and do this bill at the last second.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and to go briefly back to Hatch, I know that it's been a bit, but saying that, the idea that we're doing this and that this is going to help out the rich, I'm from the low and middle class, I want to help them. NBC News had a financial analysis done of the likely effects of I believe this is the Senate version of the bill, on a particular one wealthy person, not hypothetically all wealthy people, but let's take one. You might have heard of Miss Donald Trump. He would save more than $20 million personally, just himself, according to analysis of his 2005 tax return, and his heirs could potentially save $1.1 billion based on his reported wealth if this bill goes through. By the way, that's based on a reported wealth of $2.85 billion, estimated idea of his wealth. He claims he has far more, and if that's true, they could save potentially billions of dollars.
And he's also 71 years old, and most of that savings comes from the fact that, according to the Senate bill, in 2024, the estate tax will be repealed, and that's where he gets his greatest savings on his wealth.
Exactly. It's an amazing system they've built up. I mean, thankfully, as you said, oh my God, now I'm blanking on the name of the senator who came against it. Ron Johnson is against it. I saw that Susan Collins, I believe, was sort of hesitant. I think Murkowski
You
was
never,
sort of
you never know with Rand Paul either on these things.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a bizarre one. I read it. Maybe it's changed. He's the only senator who hasn't taken his endorsement away from Roy Moore. That's what I read.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I read that too. I did.
That's bizarre.
Not as bizarre as the thing that happened. Like, I'm sorry, you're going to make a point that's important. This is just silly, but it's not really. So, like, there's something missing still from that story with getting his ribs.
Oh yeah, with Rand Paul story. Yeah,
There's more to it. There's more to it.
I don't remember what I was going to say, but I'm sure it was
the Rand Paul vote. When I said he was likely, we didn't.
He's right. He's the only person right now to come out against Roy Moore. But yeah, I mean, there. I was going to say about. And we don't, as John McCain said, he'd support it.
No, we don't know about John McCain.
John McCain, just because I feel like there's a little bit of John McCain. It's, I'm going to wait until the last possible second on every bill I have left.
Right.
And I'm going to vote against the rest.
Right. As exciting as it might be, I don't want, with all the consequences in the immediate term and just the ripples that go out years and decades in the future from this bill, I don't want to be like sitting watching TV to see if he gives us a thumb down at the last second. Like,
there's going to
be too important.
I believe they're going to peel something off of this. They're going to find something that doesn't have to go through reconciliation, that they're going to be able to vote on before Thanksgiving, that gives them something to take home. I don't know what it's going to be. I think it might be a small, it might be a standalone, something the Senate, through their rules, can actually vote on and get done. Because
with Democratic support or
without Democrat, but with the Murkowskis of the world and then the Collinses and
something that 51 Republicans in the back.
Because otherwise, this administration is on a legislative level
the worst
historically a failure, and that's as objective as I can be. I mean, we know that I cannot bear this man, but objectively speaking, legislatively, nothing. Everything's been by executive order.
Yeah,
it's astonishing. So they're going to have to, and that falls on the Congress too, because they're the next ones up. So they're going to have to come home with something.
If you like the Young Turks, you'll love Young Turks membership. TYTnetwork.com/join.
Hey YouTube, what's happening? November 18th, today, live, we're going to be doing a benefit called Night of Too Many Stars. It's to benefit Next for Autism, which provides education and services for those with autism and their families. It's going to be amazing. Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Olivia Munn, the girls from Broad City. It's going to be a phenomenal show. Stephen Colbert, The Roots. I really hope you watch it. You can see it on YouTube. Streaming live. You can donate at the little button. It's really a tremendous cause, and I hope you enjoy it and donate. I'm going to go check my answering machine and VHS tape.
get $50 off a set of 4 eligible Firestone Destination tires from Tires Plus. At TiresPlus.com, you can get a tire quote in less than 30 seconds. What else could you get done in 30 seconds? Well, you could try to break the world record for the 300-meter dash. Go to TiresPlus.com to get a tire quote today.
Get ready to be horrified. Here is a demonstration of the brand new capabilities of actually something related to this last video. The Boston Dynamics Robot Atlas.
Is that a thing a lot of people are going to want their robot to do?
I don't know, but
Did they show the guy afterwards? Does he say what it was like?
what's that?
Does he say what it was like being in that
The
suit?
guy in the suit.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Really?
It was a 6'9" robot. We've previously seen videos of it, like walking and stuff like that, recovering from
So
being
the robot's name is Atlas?
It's exactly.
Okay, because I thought it was a robot Atlas.
Right, he's just going to say, and this is where Diego Garcia
Right, exactly. The best route to get from Denver, Colorado to Helena, Montana.
But so there you see it failing. So look, this entire thing is actually so show the fail one more time.
That was great. Oh yeah, you can see it go wrong.
Now he sets his
Oh, he's trying. This one is just he had a little bit of trouble.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah.
The Russian judge not going to like that. Oh,
I thought it was super weak when he was jumping from blue sort of whatever that
Boxes
is, or blue box, and then but it was too far, so he just jumped on the ground first.
and then he jumped on the big one.
Yeah, but
well,
look, if you haven't been following these robots, and I actually have, that's amazingly difficult. I mean, it's a 6'9", extremely heavy, extremely complicated robot that can now do backflips. I mean, can anyone at this table do backflips? I couldn't even do
No,
the
but I'm not
backflip.
6'9", so
That's true.
yeah, that is unbelievable. I mean, it really was. Freakish.
Once you can get to that, I mean, God knows in a year.
But I
10
also
years,
like that it kind of screwed up too. I mean,
It's not perfect.
right. So I mean, I see this and I think, look, that's not going to make our lives easier. That's not collecting my laundry. That's getting a gun and that's going to fight. And that's
Probably.
right.
So that's one of the reasons.
And it's the military, so sometimes it'll fall down.
It'll fall down or it'll mess up and shoot the wrong person.
Yeah.
So, look, this isn't immediately necessarily a military thing, although their previous four-legged sort of pack animal robot has been tested by the military. But you can't look at that and have watched the movies that we watched growing up and not think the military is looking at that. That is going to be one way, just like with unmanned vehicles in the air, they're going to be able to extend military power without the threat of actually losing a human.
American,
yes, so that's a good point.
So,
an American, and God knows what effect that'll actually have once it gets deployed. And those things, by the way, are not going to be cheap.
And then when it's all robots going, then we really don't have to stand up for the national anthem, right?
Real quick, what movie did you think of first?
When I see that, I think of Terminator.
Yeah, I was Notting Hill.
Ordinary people.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I don't get that. But anyway,
you said the movies we grew up with.
Ninja Turtles. I don't know. But anyway, look, for right now, that's an interesting technological thing, but it's going to have huge economic and especially military implications at some point.
If you like this video, you'll love the whole TYT network. Check it out at tytnetwork.com/join.
You're a noob. And your friends, they're hot garbage. Who cares? Grab the crew and run it back.
Fox has permanently banned Gene Simmons. And that was after he was in New York doing interviews on various shows for Fox in order to promote his book. Now, he made headlines earlier this week when he talked about how, women can really wield their power if they put some lipstick on. His quote also was to lift, separate, and point them in the general direction of men, referring to women's breasts. If women are looking for promotion or some power in life. Well, of course, he offended some people, but that didn't stop Fox from inviting him on. So Simmons had come to Fox to do an interview with Maria Bartiromo on Fox Business's Mornings with Maria to promote his book. Right after that, things really started to fall apart, okay? So Bartiromo's studio is located on the 3rd floor at Fox News and Fox Business headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. After the interview, he went to the 14th floor for an entertainment feature where he began acting improperly. And that's where things really started to get crazy. So there was a video shared by one of the Fox hosts that kind of illustrated the beginning of him losing his mind and doing things that ended up getting him banned. Here's the very beginning. Take a look.
Gene, right over there. In addition to power, would you like to do precipitation?
Oh my gosh! Gene Simmons doing weather. Come over here, Janice. The lighting is better here. Yeah, Janice. Gene is now the weather machine. We are maximizing Gene Simmons' potential with the weather map. So let's take a look at it. Show me. Give me some temperatures.
Well, if you're in Provo, of course, why aren't you? It's 32 degrees Fahrenheit as opposed to Celsius. Now, Albuquerque, which is difficult to spell, but I know that because I used to be a 6th grade teacher, is now at 43 degrees.
Okay, so there, he's already kind of starting to get a little...
What a ham.
Right, what a
This
ham.
guy is a ham. He doesn't need to have his face painted to be entertaining. He really gets it going. I love when someone on an interview just gets up out of their chair.
Yeah.
And then, what's going to happen next? Obviously the weather in
I
this
think
case.
it could
but you
happen
never
in the
know.
old days with wired microphones.
No, you kind of fall back in your chair.
Yeah.
It's a little creepy, though.
Yeah. Well, this is where things started to get crazy because...
So far, it's okay.
So far, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but that was kind of like the beginning.
Not that hard to spell Albuquerque, by the way. When in doubt, it's a U.
Oh, okay.
you.
Then all of a sudden, he goes into a staff meeting, barges in, interrupts it, and starts antagonizing the women in the room. He was quoted as saying, "Hey, chick, sue me." And he said that while pulling open his velvet shirt to expose his chest and stomach.
He was wearing a velvet shirt. We saw it right there.
Good point.
Then he
This
started...
checks out.
Then he started telling Michael Jackson pedophilia jokes, because those are always fun, and then bopped 2 employees on the head with his book, making derisive comments about their comparative intelligence according to the sound their heads made when struck.
This is like a lot of weird stuff is happening in the story. Good job of whoever wrote this article to use the word Lloyd. Lloyd used the word bopped.
Yeah, bopped, yeah.
Like, this is a story in an era of sexual misconduct reporting and sexual harassment claims where he used his term, bopped him on the head with a book.
Yeah, that's what happened.
So, can I chime in with something here that I know about
Yes,
Gene Simmons? So Gene Simmons is a huge fraud. I don't mean talent-wise. He may be talented. I don't know, kisses in my bag, but I get it. People like them, and God bless them for that. Everybody's got their own taste in music. He is, I believe, threatened and easily wants to prove to people how smart he is. There's an interview which everybody, I hope, is probably still available. He did with Terry Gross on Fresh Air on NPR, probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And I mean, his behavior was so offensive. And I don't say offensive like I don't mind when people get offended. We don't have a right not to be offended in this country. Sometimes you're going to be offended, right? There are serious issues which we're dealing with now, but getting offended is, I don't think, one of them. But I just mean offensive to the soul. Not like we should reprimand him, just like, who is this guy?
What did he say?
He kept correct. First of all, I didn't know we were going to talk about it today, so I don't. He kept using big words, probably some of them right, but some of them wrong. But in a way that was like, look at me. Like, you saw it there. I was a former 6th grade teacher. He can't let that go. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else, but but I'm telling you, he isn't. He's dumb. Gene Simmons is dumb as a post and is constantly trying to show off how bright he is, how he's your intellectual equivalent. Whereas nobody cares. We're not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't go around into rooms wondering. None of us do, thinking, "Oh boy, I hope people in here are my intellectual equivalent."
Yeah.
It's not something we concern ourselves with at all.
Yeah.
But he wants to prove something. He has no sense of humor. None. His whole sense of humor is outrageous. You didn't think I would do this. What I did. Put my hand right there. So I just kept thinking, wow, total fraud. Everything about this guy is fraud. My dad, God bless him, God rest his soul, used to have a great expression. He would just analyze a story, any story that involved a Jewish person or Israel or anything. He'd read the story and then he'd go, good for the Jews or bad for the Jews.
Right.
And as it says here in this story, Chaim Witz is his name, and he immigrated to the U.S. in 1957. Gene Simmons, bad for the Jews.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, one person quoted at Fox told the Daily Beast the following: "It was pretty severe."
Yeah, he is.
Like, it's got to be bad if he's permanently banned from Fox. So I don't know what's going on in his head. He just doesn't seem like a great guy to be around.
Listen to that interview sometime. Terry Gross.
Definitely.
Man, I mean, if you ever if you don't appreciate Terry Gross, and I have a significant admiration for her. This is it's the thing I like to be good at is doing these interviews, and she's very good at it. And she was she did turn. She didn't stay fully composed. She did it perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, she was like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you talking to me this way?" Oh, by the way, I'm leaving out. He was also unbelievably sexist, out of control sexist. So it's worth. I hope it's up somewhere. It's worth listening to.
I will definitely check it out.
Just in terms of Terry Gross's absolute professionalism and competence, and his sort of outrageous simpleton behavior.
This story does. The fact that he's banned from Fox, it's kind of a sign of the times, because if this happened 2 years ago, they would have just offered him the APM slot.
Right, totally. That's right. Yeah.
Watch the Young Turks commercial free. Download it or stream it. Watch it any way you like at tytnetwork.com/join.
A woman who was the target of a local sheriff in Texas over her use of a bumper sticker that he did not like has now been arrested. This is an update to a story that we did earlier, and it's regarding a woman who had a bumper sticker on her car that had a bunch of expletives directed toward people who voted for Trump. Now, the sheriff who saw this bumper sticker, or saw a picture of the truck with the bumper sticker, had wanted to target her for prosecution, and then he realized, maybe there's some freedom of speech issues there, and maybe I should take my post down. Well, here's the update to the story. Karen Finesca, who is the woman with the truck and the bumper sticker, was arrested Thursday afternoon for possession and use of a fake identification, jail records show. A spokeswoman for the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office told BuzzFeed News that it received a tip Wednesday that there was an outstanding felony warrant for the driver. And so my guess is she probably became, or her identity became public as a result of this big story that went viral, and then maybe someone looked into her past, her record, I don't know, but someone tipped the authorities off to her. And for those of you who might not have seen the bumper sticker in question, here's what I was talking about. It said, F Trump and F you for voting for him. And then the sheriff, Troy Nels, from Texas, said, "I've received numerous calls regarding the offensive display on this truck, as it is often seen along FM 359. If you know who owns this truck, or it is yours, I would like to discuss it with you. Our prosecutor has informed us she would accept disorderly conduct charges regarding it." Now, there have been a number of cases that were ruled by federal judges, indicating that you can't go after people for things like this, for a bumper sticker that might be deemed offensive. So he later took down that post, but she ended up getting arrested anyway for unrelated charges.
Yeah, I hope she can prove it. I mean, the fact is, I'm sure they didn't make up the charge. It probably existed, but they were thrilled to find it when they searched her, because they targeted her for prosecution, right? They were like, let's dig up something, let's find something, and they found something. I hope she wins everything. I hope she wins everything. I hope she wins harassment. I hope she makes these guys pay. And unfortunately, the ACLU has told her to get in touch.
Yes.
Because it's not. I mean, it's been very clear. You're allowed to use 4-letter words. That is protected speech. You can use it in a bumper sticker. You can use it to fly a flag from your house. I would have gone a different route with my Trump protest, just because, again, I do think, you're on the street, kids, and they're going to be like, hey, what's that? I wouldn't have gone with that. I would have objected on those grounds a little bit to somebody who had an F Obama and F you for voting for him, which I'm sure probably existed in Texas.
Yeah.
But they're not the same. There are reasons to hate Trump, and there weren't reasons to hate the other guy.
I have a shirt that says I got bourbon faced on shit street that I bought in New Orleans. And I bought it and I was like, this is the most clever thing I've ever seen. I need this now. Also, I think I had been drinking. So I bought it and I occasionally would put it on, but I wouldn't go outside.
Yeah.
I would go like, oh God, this isn't going to work. Go back inside. And or if I like forget that I have it on because I sleep in it, and I walk down the street and I realize I'm wearing it, I would do like the whole hand like across, like I'm like walking down the street like this because this is where the
people would say, you'd be like, it says Canal Street. It says Canal Street.
Yeah. But I would hope I wouldn't be arrested.
But whatever, it's beyond that. It doesn't matter. Whatever, she's allowed to do it, and it's fine.
She is, yeah. So she's protected by law for the bumper sticker. The other charges, I don't know anything about that.
So in Bowers versus Hardwick, the cop in Georgia goes into the apartment, right? Didn't have to. Could have rejected the call. A lot of steps along the way. Or if he felt compelled to, because the person who you knock and you go, hey, you got a neighbor who complains. So I don't know, maybe keep it down so they don't complain. But I didn't sign up to be a police officer to come in here and arrest, I'm making the ages up, and arrest a 34-year-old man for having consensual sex with a 31-year-old man. That's not why I got into this business. And Troy Nels, you got into this business because somebody saw this truck and because you like Trump or you are offended by people who find this incredibly offensive person offensive, that you decide that you're going to take time off the public dollar that you're getting paid for to protect us and keep bad guys off the street, that you think, I'm going to spend my time doing this? Here's what you say to the person who calls. Hey, man, it's America. Hang up the phone.
Yeah.
Be rude, like so often you probably are, and hang up and go to your job. Do your job. This is not your job.
Just thank you for your concern.
Thank you for your concern.
I understand that this could be unnerving to you.
Sure.
Just the expletive used, steer it away from the name, but it has been upheld in the court of law.
Okay, nothing we can do about it.
Something great about this story is it gave me a chance to go look up other anti-Trump things you can buy.
Right, yeah.
Oh, there's stuff that you looked up.
I went on
very
Etsy.
excited.
It's just amazing stuff. Like there's a Redbubble T-shirt situation you can get into. My favorite is it looks like it says it's Miller time, but it says it's Mueller time.
I've seen that one. I've seen that. I mean, I've seen that. I think I saw it on Twitter.
There's one that says it's written down in a very like Disney style T-shirt design that says "Super callous, fragile, racist, sexist, Nazi POTUS."
Nice.
Wow.
Okay.
So good, and it doesn't take up as much time. There's a pin you can get that's an Oompa Loompa of the president. It's just his face on the Oompa Loompa. And then there's like this whole toilet subgenre of things you can buy.
The toilet subgenre.
I have the toilet paper, which my mother-in-law gave me as a gift. But there's also like the poo emoji sticker you can put on it's Trump's face and the poo emoji. And then also like a decal you can put. Guys' urinals have like sometimes like a little bee that you pee on. Just so it doesn't, that's like the non-splash zone. You can put a whole Trump decal inside your toilet and pee on it every time if you want to express yourself.
I may take a controversial stand here. I reject all of those. I really do. Those make my skin crawl and I hate them. I get it. You can sell them, but don't do it. Don't do it. Don't buy any of that stuff. Don't support that.
I think for me, the big thing is whether you want to buy it or not, do you boo? Like, I don't care, right? But I just don't like owning or displaying anything like that because I just don't want people to talk to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're inviting people to talk to you or interact with you, and look, for the vast majority of people are fine, but I still don't want to talk to you. Like, I don't.
It sounds like a non-political statement.
No.
Statement of interaction.
No, it's actually strictly political. Because if someone approaches me and wants to talk about something else, then I'm all for it. Like, I'm not going to shut down immediately. If you want to come up to me and talk to me about Trump and politics, I don't want to talk to you at all. I don't want to talk to strangers about, and I don't want to invite it. You know what I'm saying? Because people are insane right now.
Yeah.
And people are unhinged and like mentally unstable and do all sorts of crazy things. You see all sorts of crazy videos out there of people confronting each other violently. I'm not inviting that. And I think, look, I support this woman. I support anyone who wants to display any type of political speech. That is your right. But it is risky too. So there's like a little element of courageousness in what she's doing, because she's in freaking Texas where, you know, the majority of people in her district voted for Trump. And so she's like, I don't care. I'm going to have this. I'm going to, you know, display it loud and proud.
Help us build independent media. Become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.
Police are now answering questions regarding a shooting that took place in Northern California that unfortunately led to the death of 5 individuals and several others who were wounded. Now, the man who shot and killed 5 individuals actually had a court order against him. There was a restraining order against him, and the court order indicated that he was prohibited from having guns. However, even though neighbors had alerted authorities on several occasions to let the cops know that this guy was discharging his weapon outside of his home and that he shouldn't have the weapons, nothing was done to stop him. So this happened in a rural part of California. He shot and killed 5 people and wounded at least 8 others at different locations around this rural community of Rancho Tehama Reserve. Police later shot and killed him. His name is Kevin Neal. We do have a mugshot of his, and the reason why he has a mugshot is because back in January, he actually went after one of his neighbors and stabbed her, and that was the reason why she was able to obtain a restraining order against him. Police conceded, though, that neighbors had repeatedly complained about Kevin Neal firing hundreds of rounds from his house, among other erratic and violent behavior. This is what the cops said during the press conference. He was not law enforcement friendly. He would not come to the door. You have to understand, we can't anticipate what people are going to do. We don't have a crystal ball. However, considering the fact that there was this court order against him, indicating that he was prohibited from having these guns, if neighbors had alerted authorities about him shooting and all that stuff, the cops had the ability to just enter his home. They didn't even need to get a warrant, right? They could search his home and make sure that things were safe, but they didn't do that.
But they would have no problem getting a warrant. I mean,
no, they didn't. A lawyer looking into this said no, based on court order, if there was a probable cause, the cops could go in.
There's probable cause, but I mean, if they went to a judge and said this guy's been shooting off guns in his house and he's a neighbor, I mean, that any prosecution-friendly judge, any reasonable judge would probably say that is probable cause for a warrant and get him a warrant.
They have 2 options when they say you have to understand, like, he was not law enforcement friendly. You have to understand we can't anticipate what people are going to do. We don't have a crystal ball. They have 2 options. 1 is to find a way through the legal system to enforce the law, and 2 is just get a crystal ball. Just find a way. So as maybe a plan B backup.
Right, go to the crystal ball.
Figure a way to get a crystal ball. Have that in the works, but in the meantime, go get a warrant.
Right, and look, again, like, based on this specific case and this specific court order prohibiting him from having guns, they didn't even need to go the extra step of getting a warrant. If they had any probable cause, any suspicion that he had weapons, they could search his home. But they knocked. Apparently this guy wouldn't answer the door, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess this is it. I guess there's nothing else we can do. When in reality, there was much more they could have done. So let me give you more details about the shooting that took place. He had a history of domestic violence against his wife, and one of the victims of this shooting was his wife. Police found the bullet-riddled body of Neal's wife stuffed under the floorboards of their home. Neal also shot 2 of his neighbors in an apparent act of revenge before he went looking for random victims.
Do we know whether it's the neighbor they encountered?
One of the neighbors, the neighbor that he stabbed back in January, was one of the victims.
So he went back and killed that person.
Yeah. So he also went for random victims at different locations that included the community's elementary school. Luckily, no children were killed, but there were a number of children who were wounded. He went to a local school and tried to shoot at the kids, but there was an educator there who was incredibly brave and heroic and managed to get all the kids inside a classroom before Neal could get close enough to really cause some damage. Now, he kept trying to get into the room, but failed to do so. So he started shooting into the room, and one of the students did get hit with a bullet, or a couple bullets, but he is in the hospital and is expected to make a full recovery.
Yeah, they said it was a school custodian.
Custodian, yeah.
Just got it. I mean, a lot of this is just there are rules in place to keep this guy from having a gun. So there are lots of questions in the gun debate. One of them this one seems to be settled. This guy should not have had access to it legally. There is a law on the books preventing him from doing this. This is a question of whether we are fulfilling the promises we've made.
Yeah.
So he apparently they found a couple of guns that they recovered from the scene. They recovered 2 homemade assault rifles and 2 handguns that had been registered to somebody else because he had given up his guns apparently back in February. Right.
But he's shooting them off. Now, all the things that we had, this could have been avoided.
Yeah. Look, I think, oftentimes people say, well, we have some gun control measures, and why don't they work? Well, part of the problem is, the enforcement of these measures is lacking. And there are lawmakers right now in Congress that are trying to solve that issue. So if there is any form of background check, sometimes there's a lack of communication or miscommunication between different states, or, some of the information isn't updated into someone's record. All sorts of things kind of fall through the cracks, allowing someone who shouldn't legally obtain a gun to go off to a gun store and buy it, And so, again, there are some efforts to stop that from happening. But, we have to strengthen whatever, flimsy laws we have in the first place. And we also need to have a conversation about, gun safety as well, because there's never any discussion about that. I know you guys did a story in Hour 1 about a man who accidentally discharged his gun at a church and shot his wife.
We didn't do that.
Oh, you guys didn't get to it.
Yeah, we didn't get to it.
So there was a story prepared, but unfortunately you guys didn't get to it. But yeah, a guy is in a church, he's showing off his gun to churchgoers, thinks that he took all the bullets out, and then he accidentally discharges the gun and shoots his wife. Luckily, no one got killed, but we need to have a real conversation about gun safety in addition to what
shows their gun off in a church.
That's America, man. It's just the country we live in, and I feel like it's a type of culture that maybe we don't understand, but for some people, it's like the most normal thing in the world.
Just think for a second. Every time I followed the story of that California shooting for the last day since we found out that his wife was under the floorboards.
Yeah.
Like, who'd gotten a restraining order against him. Just think about the horror that this woman went through, right? Get a restraining order against him, protect yourself, and then there he is. You know what he's capable of? Just every moment of her, the last moment of her life was as bad as it could possibly be.
Yeah.
Help us build independent media together. Come join us, tytnetwork.com/join.
Hey YouTube, what's happening? November 18th, today, live, we're going to be doing a benefit called Night of Too Many Stars. It's to benefit Next for Autism, which provides education and services for those with autism and their families. It's going to be amazing. Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Olivia Munn, the girls from Broad City. It's going to be a phenomenal show. Stephen Colbert, The Roots. I really hope you watch it. You can see it on YouTube, streaming live. You can donate at the little button. It's really a tremendous cause, and I hope you enjoy it and donate. I'm going to go check my answering machine and VHS tape.
Not only can you get $50 off a set of 4 eligible Firestone Destination tires from Tires Plus, at TiresPlus.com, you can get a tire quote in less than 30 seconds. What else could you get done in 30 seconds? Well, you could try to break the world record for the 300-meter dash. Go to TiresPlus.com to get a tire quote today.
There is a bipartisan effort in the Senate to strengthen background checks in the United States if you are looking to purchase a firearm. Now, this is an effort, again, not just by Democrats, but by a Republican senator and a Democratic senator, and they're saying, look, we need to bolster the background check system in order to make sure that the communication is strong and to make sure that these backgrounds are as comprehensive as possible, so we're not allowing the wrong person to legally obtain a gun. Now, legislation would require the head of each federal agency to certify twice a year that they have submitted the proper records to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, and would mandate that each agency develop an implementation plan for ensuring that all records are submitted. If the agency fails to certify that the records it has submitted to the NICS or fails to follow its implementation plan, political appointees in the agency will not be eligible to receive bonus pay. So there's the incentive to actually keep up with the records. And that's one of the bigger problems that people are experiencing. Some of these records are not being, first of all, included or taken. And so this law, if it were to pass, would do something about that.
And you're right. It's good news, right? It's bipartisan. You got John Cornyn, of all people, from Texas, working there. Tim Scott from the South Carolina, very conservative. Orrin Hatch, obviously, and Dean Heller, and working with some Democrats, too. But, the conversation we don't even fix the things, these little things. And when people call for meaningful gun, and even Chris Murphy, who's so outspoken, really, because he represents Newtown, and he's been terrific on it. And if it were up to him, we would probably have some meaningful changes. But the conversation about gun control takes place totally on the NRA and the rights side of the ledger. Nobody's talking about restricting the manufacture of certain kinds of guns, or banning the sale of certain kinds of guns, or going out and ordering people within the next year to turn in those kinds of guns for some sort of, we don't, like, all things that might be reasonable and might actually make a significant difference. And we're not talking about banning everyone, keep taking everybody's gun away. But again, we don't let people have, or although based on the show I just saw, some people do have bazookas, but we don't let people have tanks, right? We don't let people have Tomahawk missile launchers. That's gun control. We have gun control. We do control the sale and ownership of some guns. We just stop it at a point before, when we still allow them to have guns that can do military grade weapons that can still do tremendous damage to people.
Right.
So we don't have a conversation about just getting rid of those guns. Like, within 10 years, we're not going to have these guns anymore. We're going to get them. We'll pay you for them. They're property. You have a right to some money for that. And we're going to take those guns from you. And now, because but we don't even, that conversation not happening, we're going to get this, and then they'll pass this, right? Probably.
No, I don't
Maybe
even
they
think
won't.
they're going to
pass. Even if they pass this, then they'll shake hands, and we will have shored up something that needed shoring up. But it is a tiny, tiny, tiny little step toward getting to the kind of society where people can walk around and not substantively fear that they might be part of a mass shooting.
And I just want to quickly interject, and before you jump in, Brett, that bump stocks are still perfectly legal.
Right.
You can buy a bump stock right now, perfectly legal. Congress did absolutely nothing following the mass shooting in Las Vegas.
That went away. So even like the little, you could agree. I think we can all agree. That was a little thing to change.
Yeah.
And all the analysis is, well, all right, we can agree that this one thing, there's a spirit of a law saying that you can't have an automatic weapon. This has it functioning as an automatic weapon. The law's already in the book. Let's ban the thing that does it. But it is that process that happens not just on the other sides, in their terms and according to their structure, but it just happens behind the scenes, and no one sees where it goes on. It also happens in the dark and in secret, and once there's a light shine on it, something else happens. We look the other way, and it's gone. And the sad logic seems that, like, this thing has to happen more often in order for us to pay attention long enough to make sure that it goes through. Another aspect of this is a law that we are passing to ensure we follow the law.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so if this doesn't work, then, a few years later, we'll rethink it. We might pass a law to make sure that we follow the law that ensures that we enforce the original law. So I don't think why do we need this aspect of it? I know we need to get together and vote, and hopefully it'll be really quick, but I get more and more, disconcerted and sad when I see over time, even these little things that are just.
That's what I'm saying. This is a minor. This is close to nothing.
It's fulfilling the promises we've already made.
I wanted to have a little hopeful story.
No, it is. I'm glad.
No, but you guys are right. You guys are right ultimately. And you remember the good old days when we were like worried that they're probably gonna just ban bump stocks and then, look at that as a win and then leave the gun control issue. Like, that, I look back at that and I'm like, man, I wish that would have happened. At least they would have banned that, right? But they couldn't even do that.
Well, we didn't do anything after Vegas because...
We're never going to do anything, period.
No, because Vegas did not have the emotional impact of Newtown. I mean, 20 first graders got murdered in their class. Murdered, and knew they were going to get murdered. They were terrorized first, and then murdered. They saw their friends die, and then they were murdered. First graders, they're 6-year-olds. And we didn't... So, I mean, that's worse than Vegas, if we're going to rank them, and we didn't do anything.
Man, I stayed in Mandalay after the event.
Oh, you did, really?
Yeah, I went back just because I got an offer, because I play too much casino slots on my phone, and they were like, come stay for free, and so I went, and they have made the change that you have to show your key card before you go up the elevator.
Oh, well.
So you show them that you have a key card.
I thought they didn't already do that?
They did already do that, but then they didn't do it everywhere.
Right, now it's all day?
They did announce that
really
they're...
annoying.
But it's just so that they can maybe register you as someone someone can see you go in and out. So if you go in and out a lot with a lot of bags, maybe that's one thing. And then there also was a story in the news about how if it's longer than 72 hours and you've had do not disturb on your door, they're just going to go in.
They're just going to go in. They're just going to, you get do not disturb on your door for 72 hours. They're going in. You're getting fresh towels, man. That's it.
Yep.
You are getting
I don't care if they're on the floor or not.
We're giving you 4 new towels, some hand towels, and the medium towel, which is an underrated but misunderstood towel.
Okay, unacceptable. Like, this is the thing, okay? So you have bad actors doing terrible things. And so instead of passing legislation that would, maybe put a stop to that, instead everyone else is going to be inconvenienced, right? Everyone else.
Security.
It's the TSA.
Oh my God. That's it. Now we're going to be, by the way, I went to a school district board meeting that I was just interested in, and it was in this building where, as I drove through security, he stopped me and he's like, you need to open your trunk. They had to search my trunk.
Yeah, I've had that.
That's insane.
Help us build independent media together. Come join us, tytnetwork.com/join.